Your speech.
Thank you. Australia and Sri Lanka celebrated 75 years of diplomatic relations this year, and we share a long-standing history of bilateral relations, extensive links underpinned by our amazing 170,000 strong Sri Lankan diaspora community here in Australia. Sadly, Sri Lanka is facing a multi-dimensional crisis compounded by shortages of food and essential medicines, threatened livelihoods, and with high inflation, rising commodity prices, power shortages and lack of fuel. The economic crisis is the worst since the country's independence. The recent economic and political crisis in Sri Lanka has not only affected the great people of Sri Lanka, but also the Sri Lankan Australians who have their families and loved ones caught up in this crisis. The scarcity of fuel and food, as I've said, is having a devastating emotional impact on our local Australian Sri Lankan community. I have a large Sri Lankan Australian community in my electoral Latrobe, and I've heard their stories of hardship, anxiety and mental distress due to the state of their families, friends and their fellow Sri Lankans due to this terrible crisis in their beloved country. I understand their pain for their loved ones back home, as I hear about it every day. Recently, I had the great honour to attend the Dance for Cause Save a Dream fundraiser dinner dance on Friday the 19th of August at the Clayton Community Centre on the invitation of Dr Lionel Bowpage, President, and Miss Sithi Makra, Vice President, and Sri Lankan Australians Incorporated. Also acknowledge the member for Bruce, Julian Hill, was also there, and thank you very much for your support and support of this motion. Save a Dream team is a collective of community organisations and individuals in Australia formed in the wake of current social economic crisis in Sri Lanka. The funds raised goes towards helping save the lives of newborns. It's just so sad to hear newborns who require medical attention by assisting in the purchase of much-needed medicines and medical equipment for hospitals in Sri Lanka. Last Saturday, an invitation to Naween Padagratha and Dimith Domel from the Black and Gold Victoria, I took part in launching at the launching ceremony of fundraiser cycling campaign for Sri Lanka. Black and Gold of Victoria Incorporated has initiated a campaign to raise funds to procure much-needed medicine, equipment and medical apparatus to the Apparachi Cancer Hospital in Sri Lanka. Again, very sad to hear. It's a children's hospital and they need this equipment. The appeal named Ride for Apparachi is a challenge for all supporters to ride up to 976 kilometres, and that's the number of beds in this hospital, in 40 days from the 1st of September to the 10th of October to raise funding. This initiative is supported by Rotary Australia and funds are collected under the auspices of Rotary Australia Overseas Aid Fund. Just doing a great job there. Can I just say too, on a personal note, and I went to an event called Wings of Hope, again supporting Sri Lankan children. My wife and I decided we should do a little bit by sponsoring a young girl in Sri Lanka with the education, and I just congratulate Wings of Hope organisation because it's the little things, and if more people took the effort to just provide a bit of funding each month, you can actually change a young person's life. The current economic crisis in Sri Lanka is propelling to be a humanitarian crisis. My heart goes out again to the Sri Lankan community at this terrible time. And I assure the Sri Lankan community of the unwavering support from coalition members, but also know the government members. And the great thing is there has been bipartisan support by the previous Liberal government, the new Labor government, in humanitarian support and equipment and health to our great friends in Sri Lanka. I ask the House to acknowledge the anxiety and distress that the Sri Lankan Australian community is experiencing due to this crisis. I want to strongly mention again the huge bond of friendship between our two nations. I thank the Sri Lankan community for the way they always are so warm and gracious, and the way I've gone to many events, and especially in the Vihara Buddhist temple in Berwick, and I've been to so many Buddhist temples, and they're such a compassionate people, the Sri Lankan people, helping others in Australia. They've done so well. Now they're raising money to help Sri Lankans back home. And again, it's just so sad to hear that newborns and children in the front line of this disaster. Thank you, everyone who's been speaking this motion. Thank you.
I thank the honourable member for that contribution.